So, so you guys are like in a phone booth together, sharing one line.
You ever seen Ambiguously Gay Superhero Duo?
Yeah.
Got to get in the uniform somehow, bro.
Nothing like that.
Okay. Well, but Eric, you're really tall, and Jesse, you're really short. How are you guys like managing the timing?
I'm compact, bro. There's a difference between really short. Midgets are really short. I'm a step above a midget, but I'm not quite tall.
The king of the midgets.
And when you have to defend your height, you're fucking short.
Right. Just
I need more coffee.
We have a mic in the middle of the car. That's easy.
Nice. Wow. That's gorilla. I love it. Hey, just so you know, I already started recording, so I got all that banter on here. So it was awesome, including the ambiguous character. I don't know if we can say that in this day and age. I don't know if I'm going to lose followers or get thrown in jail.
Oh no, we can say it, but we certainly shouldn't.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it, right? Like, what was Seinfeld's thing? There's anything wrong with that.
Not there's anything wrong with it.
We love everybody, man. We love everybody.
Nice. Okay. Well, I've got a dynamic duo on our podcast today, and two guys that I'm quickly becoming very close with because of personality, ethics, integrity, and stuff like that. But guys, why don't you introduce yourself real quick to the listeners, and let's go by height. Eric, why don't you introduce yourself first?
As the shorter of the two, I appreciate that, Tony. I will. I'll start. Now, my name is Eric Goodman. I'm a doctor of chiropractic by education, but I actually travel around the world teaching something called foundation training, which is a simple way to fix your spine, fix your life, make yourself feel better. Nice.
Jesse, go for it and speak up.
All right. Jessie Salas. I was a 17-year firefighter. I now work for foundation training, traveling and teaching, helping guys with back injuries. And, came into it as with a background in strength and conditioning, a lot of barbells, a lot of kettlebells. And this just became something that was helping a lot of firemen. And next thing I knew, they were recruiting me to help guys from a global standpoint instead of local. So, when you see your calling, you go with it. So the calling was firefighting. Now it's this, and loving it, man. Let me meet guys like Tony Blauer.
Thank you. But talk more about Blauer. What about this cat? Seriously. Hey, so I wanted to have you guys, Eric, I've been trying to get you on the show for a long time. I think rather than, this conversation will obviously run off on multiple tangents, but let's start off with, and I should just tell people, most of you know that I've been dealing with back and neck injuries for years. I got kicked in the head. Well, I should say I blocked a shin kick with the back part of my knee, my ear and my neck years ago. It was deliberate. I blocked this kick with my face and head. And I got this, wicked stinger that felt like it lasted hours, but it was a couple of seconds back in the fight. But the next day I woke up, I've had neck pain ever since. I've had every type of treatment possible. Being in combatives and fighting, boxing and whatever, for decades, I've got internally rotated shoulders. I spend more time kind of hunched over. For a lot of people who listen to our caller, obviously, cops, military, martial artists, and regular people. But this internally rotated position is kind of unique to people who spend a lot of time fighting. So I've got like messed up spine and posture, ridiculously tight hips, and I've had tons of pain. Last year, I developed so much pain in my body. I had to stop training. I finally, went for an MRI. They told me you've got, pretty bad stenosis in a few places, which like everybody does, they make it sound scarier, but mine was way more advanced. And I was like panicking because I couldn't even work out. I couldn't squat. My legs would cramp up. And, some research led me to foundation training, led me to Eric. I am like many older athletes. I'm a horrible student. I need somebody there cracking the whip, do this, do that. Otherwise I'm incredibly lazy. But I started doing some of the basic movements in this program in foundation, and like I'm doing other stuff too, but like gradually the very sharp pains I was getting in my legs, my low back, started to dissipate. And I was doing all sorts of like, moving around and running and flying and still doing all the shit that would, screws up anybody with a healthy body. But the only thing that I consistently did just a few minutes a day, it's ridiculous, was some of Eric's protocols. And, I'm back to working out. I can do light runs. I can do like little sprint intervals. I'm moving around, and it's crazy. And you've had other amazing success stories, but I just wanted to give the listeners like a preamble that the reason you're on the show isn't just because you're my buddy and you're a good guy, blah, blah, blah. It's that, without even fully committing to the prescription that you recommend for people, I've started to feel changes in my body. And the only thing that I can look at that makes sense is the foundation training stuff. So thank you for that. And now I'm going to hand the mic to you. Basically, Eric, share with people, piggyback on anything that I said there, but then, your story of how you came to this via your own injuries and exploration is, I think, potent and important for the listeners.
All right, I'll do my best. Thanks for that. Thanks for that endorsement. Let me segue into, I don't want to go too deep into the foundation training stuff. I just want people to learn about it. I want people to understand that you can go to a website, you can check it out, you can learn for free if you want to. That's fine. You can go to our YouTube, or you can go all the way through a certification if you want. But the reason I get to have a couple friends like you, Tony, is because for some reason, my back injuries are very similar to most people's back injuries. And to remedy my own over the past decade, I have developed a protocol that has helped me continuously, and it strengthens the posterior chain and it connects a lot of dots. But you're giving me too much credit at this stage. I got to be honest. The credit now goes to a team of us that have been very steadfastly evolving the protocols of this work now for several years. That team, that team consists of a few of us, Jessie being one of them, Dr. Duricki being another one of them, Brian King being another one of them. And I always want to make sure that people don't think like I'm standing there atop a totem pole where I'm like telling people everything to do, because I'm not. I'm now really bouncing ideas with some really brilliant guys that have had injuries too and have had to get out of them as well. So the protocols are improving thanks to those guys. So first, thanks for, it's wonderful to hear that you're getting success, and you're fucking lazy for not committing all the way. So I hope that changes as we continue to know each other longer, because with it comes more improvement. The more you do the work, the more it works. But foundation training is a simple recipe. You use all the available real estate in your body. I want to teach you how to get more out of your muscles, more connection from muscle to muscle to muscle as muscle chains are formed in the body. I want you to understand your posterior chain, and that it goes from your feet to the back of your legs, to the back of the spine, all the way to the back of the head, and that tissue needs space to perform as that muscle tissue, and the vasculature that goes through it, and the nerves that go through it, and the muscles that it's all connected to, and the bones that those muscles are connected to, so that each of those sequences and protocols within the body can work as efficiently as it can. And with that efficiency of movement and muscle contraction comes pain relief and performance enhancement and coordination enhancement, and oftentimes mood enhancement, oddly enough, as I think a number of people have experienced, especially in the arts, the martial arts, the weapons world, the combat world, tactical world. It's not my world. I want you guys to know that. But I respect you all, and I want you to feel better, and I respect what you do. And as people that train reflexes and train strength, foundation training is something you should know, understand for sure.
What was the for the lay person on here, like, first of all, anyone listening to this, if you don't have back and neck pain, you're lying, I think. It's just right. And if you don't have it, it's because you're like 7 months old listening to this while your parents are right. Isn't it isn't it just a byproduct of the fact that we're we walk on 2 feet around the planet, and what's the relationship with gravity and just living, and then like the impact on our body, and in some of your theory or ideas on how to counteract that. Because what I'm doing, what I visualize when I'm doing my exercises is these tiny, like the deepest muscles in my body trying to create space around like in my case, the nerves. How do I lengthen my body from the inside out?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my visual. That's my visual, because it's giving me space around the nerves that are being pinched and inflamed just because of the condition that I have. But I've noticed that my posture obviously has changed, but I look around the planet everywhere I go, and just from texting and driving and sitting, everyone's posture's impacted. And then of course just the weight of gravity. Can you share some thoughts on those ideas?
I'll try to. Yeah, I'll certainly try to. So I like to speak in the 80% rule. I don't think that there's no cure-all, there's no everybody falls into this category. But as a general rule, the vast majority of the human population falls into 2 movement discrepancies or movement patterns that lead to injuries down the line. The first one is when the sternum, the center of the rib cage, becomes a downward force, pulling the shoulders forward, pulling the clavicles forward, eventually pulling the head forward, so that when you have to look up to the horizon line, you sort of pinch the back of your neck where the skull meets the neck. That's a very uncomfortable position. It's like you're wearing your shoulders like a jacket, and they're not supposed to be worn that way.
Right.
They should be worn like a tank top. So what I want people to think of is this expansive platform below the shoulders at the rib cage that is expansive in nature and has the capacity to literally push those fallen, sunken, converging shoulders out of the way through very deep, powerful breathing. And so that's the first rotational problem. The first pattern that people fall into is this lazy, adapted internal rotation and lax of the shoulders, this laxity where they just rest into their joint. They're a very active tissue. They shouldn't be resting that significantly. The second one is at the hip joints, where they fall into external rotation. Literally, they're making room for your belly to move past your pelvis, and it pushes the legs out of the way while you sit there all the time. And it's not that being bipedal hurts us. I mean, we adapted to it over many, many years, depending on what a person believes. And in that adaptation period, our bodies really figured out how to stand, how to move, how to use the hip joints as a central fulcrum when they're in the right position. And because of that, when we do things like sitting that are not the positions we're really designed to stay in. Now, we can sit all the time, but we can't stay in those positions. That's when we start to have issues. That's when we start to have adaptation. External rotations at the hips and internal rotations at the shoulders is when we hold these positions passively for too long. That's where if you want to think of it, the body it has pathologies. It has these breakdowns. It has these syndromes and symptoms and illnesses and diseases. But those things often are blamed, or the blame for those things is put on something that is otherwise healthy for a person, like sitting. Like, it's okay to sit. You just can't stay that way all the time and not correct for it and not make changes. And I think that's where the audience we're talking to right now, I think that's where they make the biggest mistake. Is not that they sit, but that they have extremely aggressive movements that are required in their career and in their lives because of their job. Sometimes you got to sprint. Sometimes you got to move a body. Sometimes you got to move a car, with help. Sometimes you got to really push some heavy stuff out of the way. And for that, you should be training for that in some way. But if you're sitting down all the time and then you jump up to go and do those things, or you go ride a bike for your training, or you go and you do a bunch of bench presses and a bunch of squats without correcting for the movement patterns that have adapted or gotten used to sitting, you're screwing yourself, man. You're literally screwing yourself. You're compressing your spine to irreparable points that lead to injuries like sciatica, disc bulges, facet syndromes, stenosis, things like that are very rampant within the first responder and military communities. and at very young ages too.
Plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
I mean, real popular at the firehouse.
Tony, I'll be honest. You got a guy that's a lot smarter at this than I am right next to me, who probably has more experience in seeing this population and the injuries they get. And I know Jessie agrees. Like, you can't just go into intense movement without doing at least the slightest of preparatory work.
Well, and Tony, I guess to piggyback on it from that view is, you know, the sitting all the time, like it comes around, it comes in front of the job. I think it's part of life, but and Eric's saying, then we go into these like, hey, you went from, I mean, some days at the firehouse of sleep, but I think of the cop in his car, and suddenly you're sprinting, you're chasing someone, or, you know, you're jumping on a fire truck to throw gear on, or if you're in the military, it's grab your shit and get to work. You know, and you're really, I think of the grabbing the demand on the body. So in the downtime, if you're not doing the work to try to really counter, when you can do that, those moments are going to compile that much more. And then, you know, we're not just talking gravity anymore. You're talking body armor. You're talking air pack, you know, bunker gear, air pack, a ladder, a hook, and a set of irons. Like that was, you know, coming off my rig back in the day was air pack, irons, hook, ladder, and a saw till we got to the front door. And sometimes that was running. So, you know, we're adding all this gear on top of ourselves, and you're not just facing gravity anymore. You're facing gravity plus all this extra equipment. And, you know, it's really, you know, kind of like you're saying, there's a lot of people out there that never had a back injury, and one day they're going, what the hell? Oh, I turned 30. That's just part of it. Mm-hmm. Not really, you know, like, yeah, aging can play in, but my favorite quote was one of the guys at the firehouse, well, tigers don't stretch before they chase down an animal. I'm like, yeah, but tigers aren't sitting on their ass watching TV in shitty positions for hours on end. Right. You know, and it's really like we said in the firehouse, it's getting guys to realize that, you know, the importance of these things, that it isn't just go in there and hammer it hard. Yeah, there's a time and a place, but do a little bit of prep work so your body's going into it in an optimal pattern, optimal movements, recruiting all the muscle correctly how you want to, so that you are absorbing the force of gravity in your equipment amongst all those tiny muscles you talked about, not just the big ones that we've overdeveloped on top of the frame. Right.
Let me, you know, one of the podcasts are great. You listen to them, but you can't see shit. Is there a way, when I first I think I first read about Foundation online, and then when I was like watching the exercises as a movement guy, I mean, I've always been moving, whether it was, early on, you know, I started skiing when I was 1.5, and gymnastics and swimming and wrestling and all sorts of stuff. I've always been fascinated with kinesthetic perception and getting the feel for how my brain is moving my body. And I love all that stuff. And I'm a meticulous athlete like that. So when I first watched the exercises, I was, fascinated, with the stuff. I could see something going on. At the same time, it was counterintuitive. I think I described it to you, Jessie, recently as like tactical yoga, and I hope that's not an insult to anybody, but it was just like this, you were breathing, you weren't really moving, but there was like a functional tension, to it, this proprioception and connection between all these systems where, I dabbled in yoga in the past, and it just didn't stick because it was just too passive for me. And this felt interesting where like within minutes I could be, out of breath, my body trembling, and I'm going, okay, all I did is like breathe 5 times and hold this one position. And I need to sit down, and I'm yawning. Either one of you or both of you tag team, can you, again, because it's audio, articulate what's going on or explain a little bit of what I just described for listeners?
I'll go for it first.
Take a crack, Eric.
So first, tactical yoga is a good way to think about it. We're building an armor suit around you. Yoga's range is emotion. There's some people that take it to a spiritual component, I guess. There's culture behind it, but that, movement is movement, and yoga composes movement with breath, and then there's whatever culture behind it. That's not my thing. You doing yoga is like me doing yoga. So I kind of understand that. I remember being in yoga classes, but that was kind of my main means of trying to get my back better when I was in college and graduate school. I didn't know any better.
Yeah, and
stretch it out.
Let me inject something here, because I do want you to weave that story in there, that you injured yourself, and you're humble and a great leader in how you when I said, "Oh, and Eric discovered this," and you went, "Well, I'm surrounded by a team," and I can totally like get that. I mean, we just came off 5 days training in Vegas. I had like 10 people there. I literally didn't do a thing. It was like amazing. Like, I got this amazing team around me. But I want you to weave into this that you were injured, and of course, when you're injured as a young man, you're going to go to another subject matter expert and go, fix my back, and then it doesn't work, and you had to do this deep, introspective, intuitive exploration to even, create this protocol. I get that it's evolved and it's growing because of the people around you, but tell people a little about your injury and your yoga. And I interrupted there because I think it's huge.
Okay. So I have a very injured spine, not a kind of injured spine. I have a need for 2 levels of fusion surgery from L5 and S1 and L4 and L5. My MRI is filthy. It will be today too. You don't really necessarily reverse degenerative patterns, although I do look forward to seeing what happens over the next 10, 20, 30 years, because I've changed quite a bit. My pain is different. My body is different. My lower back injury certainly doesn't feel like an injury any longer. Now it feels like a periodic tightness, maybe. About it. Every now and then, maybe I'll get a little hip discomfort for a couple of days, but that's usually muscular. I can get a massage or stretch it out or move it out or go for a good run or a surf and it goes away. But my injury was fucking terrible, Tony. I got to be honest with you. It was the hardest part of my life. It was when I was supposed to be at my prime. I was at its worst from about 24 to about 27, 28. And in 28, or right around 28, is where I really made the shift into fixing it myself deeply. And I quite literally stopped trusting anybody with information about my spine. Wouldn't listen to anybody any longer. And kind of like, I'm gonna get better or die trying is a statement I've used a number of times, because that was my mentality at that stage, and kind of still is. Like, I'm not gonna trust anybody else. No, you're not gonna cut me open. No, I'm a 27-year-old man. I'm otherwise extremely fit and healthy. I'm in chiropractic school to understand the body. You're telling me I'm failing, and I understand that, and it hurts, but what you're telling me you're going to do is fix me at this stage of my life forever, surgically. You're going to fix my spine at its worst, and I'm not having that. I don't believe in that. I believe the body is alive and tends to fix itself with the right guidance. So I started extending my spine every chance I possibly could. Even in yoga classes, I would extend my lower back until it burned, and the muscles simply had me shaking and sweating, and just, the only thing I can say is nothing feels better than pain. Nothing. If you're causing it to yourself instead of it arbitrarily happening to you. And I could start to control my own pain. Even though I was causing it to myself, it was under my control, and I got to a point where I could turn it off too. I could strengthen my lower back enough and fatigue it enough that the pain would stop. And that was a huge change in my entire life. And that happened over 10 years ago now. I'm 37 now. That for, I guess, about 10 years ago. It was like right during the transition of 27 to 28. So what I started to do was make every yoga pose, every stretch, every weightlifting exercise I could do into a back exercise that made my lower back burn. And not my discs, not the center of my lower back, mind you. The paraspinal musculature, the stuff on the side of the spine that is there to help set the tone for the spine. It doesn't protect the spine. I've said that a number of times that it does, but I got to say, I think it sets the tone for the things that protect the spine. By strengthening that lower back musculature, you give it the chance to contend with tight hamstrings, tight calf muscles, tight abdomen muscles. Otherwise, if the lower back is too weak, it just gets bent out of shape, and you start bending your spine all the time. It wears down, like most of your listeners are currently going through, like I was going through up until I was about 28. And then with that extension strength at the lower back. And if you see any foundation training poses, you will notice a very distinct look to the spine. It looks long and wide. That's the biggest thing. Long and wide of the spine, especially at the rib cage, especially at the back of the rib cage. And these breathing patterns and these extension patterns in the spine started to make yoga make me feel good instead of make me angry. Because when I used to take a yoga class, I used to get angry. Literally. I think I have anger management issues or something like that.
Yeah.
Because they'd sit there telling me to do this pose, and Tony, it hurt. And they would look at me, and they didn't know anything about the body, man. They took a 200-hour course that talks only about yoga anatomy, not about anatomy and physiology, not about pathology and the breakdown processes of the body. They say our poses will build you up, and in a lot of people they will. What they don't say is that we don't understand your pathology, we don't understand your injury, we do not have training or licensure in those processes. Therefore, if you're coming here for an injury, I'm the wrong person for you to talk to. You need to go to a doctor, you need to go to a therapist, you need to go to somebody that understands what the hell's going on with your body, so I don't inadvertently, by teaching you a pose, break your shit.
Right. And I injured myself many times. I injured myself.
Go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I injured myself many times doing yoga because in the quest of, like, the mood was soft and the focus was, you know, deeper. And when you've got injuries, this movement has to be it's, first of all, it's unconsciously guarded, and then you slowly need to do this. It's got to be gradient, and which is why Jessie was just over at the house a couple of weeks ago for some private training for me, and he'd say, get your head here, move here, do this, but because it was under tension, like, it felt right. I felt safe because I felt like I had maximal muscle recruitment, and so I could only go as far as my mobility would allow. And there was like that tension felt like protection in a positive way. Where with the yoga, I absolutely, like, I'd go too far and then pinch something or tweak something. So
yeah, Tony, on the yoga thing, like, I still go to yoga and I still enjoy it, but I also, when I talk about it with friends and people with injuries that ask me my take, I feel like one of the foundation training is that universal accessory, right? I can look at every aspect of my life and activity, whether it's surfing, weightlifting, yoga, martial arts, and there's that level of knowing where I should be in my body, that safety tension you're feeling as you make it a habit of training, and it no longer let me get through it. No, my warm-up's 10 to 15 minutes of foundation, then whatever I take on, suddenly you know where you should be in your body. That tension you've been creating in those isometric positions, going through range of motion, when you go to your yoga class, you're going to kind of start to recognize, hey, I don't need to push beyond this. Because when I was a younger guy, I'm going to own it, I went to yoga because I saw a room full of women. And I was 18 years old. I'm like, I'm in. It's going to make me better at martial arts. Cool. And what I found was, my mindset was, the goal was, the more flexible I am, the better I'm at yoga, the better I'll be. If I'm injured, well, if I can push that range of motion, that's good. That's the answer. And then, I remember my old martial arts coaches coming over and leaning on my back into stretches, which, lucky for me, I was healthy. I have a lady that I just worked with who literally had her back lock up, and I think she wound up suing the yoga school because the instructor hurt her, and then basically like, oh, class is over, I got to leave, and she was left there like that, and so, like Eric's saying, they don't know what's going on with you, and a lot of people don't know where they're at in their own body, and that safety mechanism you're feeling, like that's one of my favorite things is people feel it, they feel all that muscle, and they go, what the hell is going on? Why is this so hard? Is what I got yesterday from somebody. And it's just, you're communicating a lot of parts of your body at once, and that communication starts to come out in everything.
I don't want to bastardize yoga because, go ahead, Tony.
No, I was going to say, and Jessie, you explained why you went to yoga when you were young, but you're telling me that your motivation is different now that you're older. That's bullshit, man.
Heck no, man. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, I love a room full of beautiful people doing movement. To go with exactly what Eric's going to say, I still practice yoga. I love it. A good yin yoga, vinyasa. I absolutely love it. But, it is one of those things like when people, what I feel like is there's a lot of people out there that when they're injured and they know, okay, the doc say, hey, you're okay. You just got to, do this, that. They go looking for answers, so we go to yoga, we go to weightlifting. And if you don't get the right people, they push you further into your injuries. Jackson Fortunato, he's coming to our cert. He's a BJJ black belt, runs schools. Back injury, the doc said you need surgery. He tried to find help, went to a strength coach, and he said that made it 100 times worse. And he was in disbelief. They were telling him, no more coaching. You got to quit doing jiu-jitsu. And I'm not doing this to sell it, but he said, he was told, do foundation. No, it's too simple. It's not going to work. 3 days of doing a 12-minute video, and he's like, my pain was gone. He's become one of our biggest advocates of use this work if you're injured to get out of it. Use this work if you want to be better. But, it really is that, all these things are great. If it goes right, if you're doing them right, and right is going to be set by the individual.
The key is not to be the best teacher. The key is to know the most about the body, to know the most about what can go wrong if you inadvertently have somebody in a risky situation for them. It's not yoga that's harmful. It's teachers that think because they know yoga or Pilates or foundation training or the many myriad of methodologies out there that you don't need a license to teach, you just need a certification. It becomes a very autonomy-based process to become a good teacher, which means go seek other information about the body to the best of your ability as often as you can for the rest of your life, so that when the one person that comes in that gives you the opportunity to go one of two ways, because they have the injury that's about to burst when you put them in the wrong position, and they're going to get pissed off and they're going to sue you and ruin your life.
Yeah.
And if you fucking catch it first and help them, you just got a lifelong patient that loves you instead of a person that's going to spend the rest of their life trying to hurt you. And that's why you have to catch it. You have to make a bigger net of what you understand about the body, no matter where you are, if you're teaching people.
Listen, not to hijack this into something I'm always talking about, but it's relevant, is I talk about this unconscious bias in martial arts and combat sports and self-defense, and not understanding the difference between these categories, that when you confuse extreme sudden violence with martial arts, you may get an outcome you don't like. And I talk about, when I'm training our trainers, we always tell them to just tattoo this on your brain. You're an options facilitator. You are sharing information so that the person who is receiving it can use their intuition, their instincts, and their intelligence to make a decision based on that filter. And it changes everything, because what I found is people get their degree, and I loved your distinction between like certification and a license, but I just had, as you know, from my neck injury, I got this wicked facial nerve injury that's a year into healing and everything. And one of my therapists just came back from a facial nerve conference and brought up, there's an exercise that I discovered online where you do these dual mirror exercise, where you trick the afflicted side into using mirror neurons and looking in the mirror. I'll smile with my right side and do exercises, and I can feel the nerve innervate on the left side. Well, the expert, one of the guest panel, like a doctor, so this is not certification, this is license, wouldn't even answer a question or entertain a question. She brought it up. Here's my therapist traveling to this conference, thinking about me, wants to ask these questions. And this doctor, who's one of the top specialists in the United States of America, therefore the world, would not even entertain the question on the mirrors. And she came back to me last week and she said, I was really disappointed. She wouldn't even address it. It was like some political thing where no more questions, or we're not answering, that type thing. And I said, well, obviously, like, that's a personal ego thing. She's upset she didn't come up with it, or she was trying to sleep with the doctor that discovered it, because why the fuck wouldn't you answer a question or discuss why in your, expert research background that doesn't work or does work? There's no reason to ignore it. And I got my therapist it was so cool. She was so upset and like apologizing to me, guys. And I said, does this doctor have facial nerve injury? And she said, no. I said, did she ever have Bell's palsy? She said, no. I said, then she's a fucking idiot, because I'm the patient. I'm the patient. And I said, I'll get on a phone. You can record me say that. I'm the one with the facial nerve that's trying to do these exhausting exercises. And that is the only exercise I do where I feel my nerves actually innervate. I can actually feel them trying to grow back in the right position doing that. So I got a little worked up there thinking about that, but it's the same thing. And I love, and you've always said that, Eric, there are times when, when you were over at the house doing some exercise with me and you said something that was so subtle, but it was so deep and had so much integrity. You said it takes a village. And I was just talking about like, hey, do you think I should try this? Do you think I should try this? And I just want everyone to listen to this. Like, here's like Eric at my house with Jessie. And when you're in pain and you're scared, it's so easy to get sucked into some guru bullshit from somebody, because they could say, yeah, it's just going to take you like 10 more lessons. And if you prepay now, I'll throw in some Ginsu knives too. And, you get sucked into.
How you liking that knife set, Tony?
Right. And so I said, like I said to Eric, I said, well, like, what do you, I did this, I forget what it was. And I'm almost apologetically suggesting that I might be seeing other people to help me heal. And the look on your face was like you smiled, like your eyes smiled, like it's going to take a village. And everyone listening to this, it was like, dude, just get healed. We just want you healed, just want you strong. And that's important. And when you, when you, a few minutes ago, before I hijacked this, you're alluding to that. And I think that's important for anyone on this call listening who is a professional, especially like martial artists, it's like they get offended if you want to go train with somebody else. And I always tell people, hey, good information doesn't displace other good information. You should not ever be afraid of somebody reading another book or listening to another tape or training with somebody, because if they're getting some value, emotional, psychological, physical value out of that, it's going to make them better. And if you truly are like a mentor, teacher, healer, that's all you want. End of rant.
That's all you want. That's all you. I mean, now you just said it. That's all you want. I didn't start a company and then come up with foundation training and then come up with an exercise program or protocol. I'm trying to stay afloat, man, in many ways in life, just like everybody is. And, I played water polo for a long time and now I surf. So I'm getting more buoyant. It's good. So I'm learning along the way. But I've learned from too many people. My theory on movement is my personal experience in movement and my obsession with anatomy combined. It's all reverse engineered though. It's like, oh, this is what this feels like. Oh, why does that feel that way? And then you kind of figure it out along the way and you tell people about the anatomy. And luckily I've been studying anatomy since I was a teenager, really, really significantly. I love it. I want to understand the body to the best I can. But in doing that, I realized that a lot of people that are my age and older have been studying in the same capacity longer. And from their perspective, and I'm not a very smart guy, so they might be smarter and spending the same amount of time in those books and with their experiences. And shit, I know I'm not the only guy with back pain and hip pain and things like that. So I know there's, the other several 100 million or billions of people out there with those experiences. What the hell do I know? I know my stuff and I know it well, really well. And I know that I don't want the responsibility, liability, or potential pushback that comes with getting everybody better with your program. I want to collaborate, man. I want to help the cause. I want to be a part of the village, but I don't want to run the village.
Right.
Too much. I want to go surfing and I want to enjoy my life and I want to have a wonderful family and I want to enjoy my wife and my kid. And it's different. It's different. It's a different mentality, I think, that is the, and I'm not saying I don't have an ego, because trust me, sir, I do. Trust me, man. and ridiculous, but it doesn't drive me. It doesn't kill me. It doesn't make me want to hurt other people. It makes me want to help other people.
Listen, I don't want to go back to, if I can remember where we were, but, it occurred to me just recently, I've been now teaching for 40 years, and it occurred to me just recently that I developed the system I wish somebody had taught me when I was 12. And where you start really thinking about bullies in high school and safety. And like, if you're a guy, you start thinking about like, what if I get beaten up? What if I get jumped? And I think that's one of the reasons, what I see in you and some of our, that esoteric spiritual connection is that you developed a system to help you. I developed a system to help me. And at a very young age, I accidentally discovered and realized that because of the organic nature of how it was developed, that it had impact and potential impact on other humans who had either similar fears or in this case, movement issues. Like at the beginning of the show where I said, hey, like if you walk around the planet, if you're on your phone, if you sit at a desk, you probably have some of these issues too, because there is this commonality there. And, but where we kind of went off on a tangent is we're talking about, and everyone listening, like you're going to go to these experts like that, the facial nerve doctor who's got an unconscious bias or a conscious bias, as opposed to, sharing information and suggesting things, but always reminding you. And if they don't say it, you need to remind yourself that ultimately you're the expert. This intuitively feels like it's going in the right direction, or it doesn't. And obviously you got to give some stuff some time, but be careful of the guru.
Be careful of the guru, and be careful of the person that wants to be a guru.
Well, I think you run into too, if not everyone's intentions are, as pure, if you want to use that term. And when you are in a position of injury or pain and you're looking for hope to get out of that, you're vulnerable, and some people are out there to prey on that. I mean, I was sitting listening to a guy selling an urn to somebody one morning in a coffee shop and preying on the scenario that, oh, your family members, in a more or less in a meat locker right now, and they don't deserve. And I'm just listening to this guy going,
wow,
God, you're preying on the fact that they've lost somebody. It was really disgusting to listen to, but I mean, that goes on in every aspect, even in the healing realm of, pay up front now, give me all this. And then, if you're hoping and believing and, you got the right snake oil salesman, you're going to get suckered, and that's the beauty of with this work is this work is powerful, but hey, look at this practice, check these guys out, explore this, be curious of what's out there. And like we're all saying is curiosity fuels that desire to know more knowledge, know more about your body, evolve, grow. And there's people that learn this, they get better from it, they find something, they go, this is way better. Awesome. Hopefully that you find a way that they combine each other, they play off each other. But it's there's people that's not for them. Just like weightlifting's not for them. They figure out what works for you and enjoy it.
We've already helped enough people to fulfill a lifetime chiropractic career of what I thought I was going to do when I was in my 20s. So now it's extra. Now we're just trying to get better at what we offer, and also find more tools that we can offer people along the way, and not take from people and say, oh, we also developed this. Like, no. Here's foundation training. It's a very distinct thing. If this does or does not work for you, here's many other options that are working for other people. And the story behind them is as significant or more so than foundation training, perhaps.
It's interesting because, what I do is, I was team dinner after our 5 days of training. I was talking to this group of 10, and one of the guys was bringing up breathing protocols, and he was asking me about my buddy Brian McKenzie's and his team's Art of Breath, and Julian Pinot from Strong Fit, and other yoga stuff and everything. And I talked about my experience, and I said, like, hey, for almost a year I didn't work out, and when Brian hooked me up with some breathing protocols I had developed because of the facial nerve injury, it had triggered anxiety in me, and which I'd never had. I mean, I was like my nervous system was just out of control, and I was like starting to panic and actually starting to have like these panic attacks. And then I heard Brian was doing stuff, and we hadn't been in contact for a long time, and we got on a call, and literally within 3 days, like I had that completely under control, doing 5 minutes of breathing in the morning, maybe a couple of 5-minute sessions in the afternoon and before I went to bed. And I was blown away. And because, my everything was inflamed, I hadn't worked out for months and months. When I finally got back a couple months ago working out again, my aerobic capacity was better than it was before when I was just doing regular workout. And this is something that Jessie, you and I talked about this with, and you were at Brian's course too. We linked up there. Was in the past, you would do your warm up. I'm making fun here. You'd get in a foam roller, you do some jumping jacks, you'd run lightly, and then you'd go. And now we're like looking at. So I get up in the morning. Before I get out of bed, I do breathing. So I'm training my lungs and my mind. Then I'll go to the garage, I do foundation, and then I start my workout. And what I've done, which is completely different than most people, but the way I've done it, in 50 years or 60, almost 60 years of moving, is I'm training, I'm warming up my lungs, then I'm warming up the smallest muscles in my body through this isometric tension, and then I'm working on the actual locomotion and movement. And it's it's mind-boggling. We were talking about this, just like no one's ever thought about, you start sprinting and you're out of breath. Well, what if you warmed your lungs up before you started sprinting? What if you warmed up all those proprioception and little muscles that work on, proprioception and agility and timing and all that little shit through like isometric tension, and then you started your warm-up protocol. I mean, it's like it's so obvious when you start doing it. It's like, why in the history of go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I'm like, this is good. It's that whole. And maybe there's the young athletes that are just that disciplined, but I think we all can relate to the fact that when you're young and you're going at it, like you're pretty much, like a wild animal. Let me off the leash. I'm going to destroy this thing. And as we evolve and we go, hey, if you're doing breathing work, if you're really, what I look at is if you're establishing your baseline every day of operation, you're doing your breathing, you're checking in, and it doesn't have to be crazy long, but, doing some breath work, checking in, oxygenating the body, allowing those little adaptations, before like I said this the other day in my, I like to think that it's a lot more popular and gets me all this attention, but I put a Instagram thing up, and
very popular.
Yes, it's my platform. It's my platform of importance.
You are
I'm doing good on Instagram. I'm doing good in life. Okay. My brother yelled that in traffic.
You and Kylie Jenner are very popular on Instagram.
For similar reasons.
It's I gauge my significance off of likes, Tony. I'm sorry, but no, my brother yelled this in traffic the other day. He's driving all fast, and he's a stunt guy. I'm like, dude, come on, man. He just, without even looking at me, if I'm doing good in traffic, I'm doing good in life. And it's like, what's crazy is there's people out there that are, so aggressive, so angry. And in my mind, I'm going, if only that person was doing breathing work. If only it was,
right.
When the world is crushing down on you in different angles, and you apply some of these breathing methods that people, that's hippie, kooky, whatever. No, man, that's part of us that we've lost track of because we're in a world that's moving so damn fast, and we're living in an environment that our body wasn't intended for, you know. And so when we're when we're talking about that prep of warming up for training, or like even the day, I'm with you, Tony. I have a breathing practice I do every morning. I look at, okay, I'm setting the baseline of, we'll say, homeostasis in my breath and in my mind, but then, you know, I try to get out, and before the phone and all these things turn on, do a handful of foundation training, set the baseline of operation for my body, check in, how am I moving, how am I feeling, you know, being self-aware, so that then, okay, if I go train or I go surf, at least I've established how I want this thing I'm traveling in to be moving and operating, you know, and then from there, hey, maybe I got to do a little bit more, maybe I got to do a little bit less, but, you know, that baseline of the body's going to get a lot of things dumped on it today, whether it's gravity or stress. Why not take the first 5 to 10 minutes to really prepare it for whatever's coming your way when you don't know what's coming, right? Unknown, unknowable, or whatever it was for CrossFit, and they say that for firefighting. But, you know, I even in the fire department argument, I'd say, like, we kind of know what's coming. So even with that, guys, let's establish good movement patterns. Let's allow our body to have as many muscles as possible, absorbing force, and then strength train it from that standpoint, not just, hey, I did 2 minutes of stretching because I know I'm supposed to, and I foam rolled for 30 seconds because I know I'm supposed to. Now I'm just going to load on top of it. Are you building up, or are you breaking it down?
It's simple, man. They give you a helmet for a reason, but the helmet shouldn't be your only protection from injury.
Right.
You got to do a lot of stuff, and there might be a lot of stuff coming at you, but that's the last line of defense against an injury.
Yeah, pretty much. We used to joke, like, it was bad. We'd take the impact shell out of, we pretty much would, the tradition, because, you know, if you're going to be dead, you got to at least look cool. But we'd wear the leather helmets, which had no impact shell in the helmet. And the theory was, well, if this is my last line of defense, I don't want to be sitting there twitching because my impact shell saves my brain.
Right.
Not thinking of, like, hey, if something popped off and nailed you, that helmet might save your life. I don't know.
It sounds difficult. It sounds like it's a lot to learn, but as anybody that's ever either learned a new language or a musical instrument can attest to, there comes a point where there's a switch over and you're not really thinking about it any longer. You're just playing within the patterns that you now understand, and you're playing with them, and you're utilizing them to your ability, and even potentially improving upon those patterns. And that's all we're talking about here, Tony. When you do your breathing in the morning, what's it take you, 5 minutes or less?
Yeah. I do. I picked 5 minutes as my minimum, and sometimes I'll do 10, and sometimes I'll do more depending on how I feel. But it's almost like, you know, you get to the point where you're working out where if you not skip a day but miss a day, your body, like, you know something's off, because it had become part of a ritual that you look forward to, and that's where people want people to get. You know, it's funny you said, like, learn a new language or learn music. And I'm thinking here, and it's a cliche as we get older, you know, we've all said things like, man, I wish I had discovered this earlier. Why didn't I start doing this? And it's a cliche that you don't do things like you said, Jesse, you know, in your 20s, it's like, let's go. No, I don't need to warm up. I mean, you know, like my warm up before I would spar in my 20s was let's go light. And then we would start, right, really hard, right? You know, but it's in, you know, like, this is the golden era of you know, body movement, right? Like, there was no bands and rollers, and, like, there was no differentiation between, nobody, even back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't ever say mobility or stability. I mean, those words didn't even exist further in the community. So, like, you know
what's crazy? You didn't say those things, though, Tony, for a reason. Because in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s and the 40s and the 20s and the 30s, before all the equipment came about and before all the technology about, in order to be healthy, you had to be mobile. It was one of the things. You had to find things to lift and move and resistance that was not perfectly made for you.
Right.
You had to figure it out. You had to lift up the smaller person next to you.
Right. And I walked to school, or I took my bike to school. And then, you know, I remember my son's a great athlete, but I remember him when he was 11 or 12 going, Dad, come here, check this out. And I go to his room. He goes, check out this catch. And he's like, you know, playing like Madden football. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Go outside and throw a real ball. And I was like, you know, like so much has changed so quickly. But I just, like, to everyone listening to this, there's, after I started breathing on purpose, I wrote a letter to Brian. I said, like, because I've been involved in like high stress scenario work, sparring, combatives, I developed really good breathing control through adaptation, but it was never deliberate. I never thought about breathing on purpose. Right. It was just like you just went, and my aerobic capacity. Yeah. But now that I'm doing all this stuff, it's occurred to me like how ridiculous it is. It's almost like as a martial artist, you used to work on strengthening your hand and strengthening your knuckles so that when you punch something, you got a stronger hand. It was accessory work for the event of punching somebody in the face. And so, that's how, to me, breath work and foundations, it's an accessory. Sounds like I'm diminishing the importance of it. I'm not. I'm trying to get listeners to understand that that's the stuff you have to do so that when the event happens, like, that's already done. You don't want to be in a high stress situation going, geez, I wish my baseline stability for breathing in high stress was. It's not going to happen right now. If you do a little bit of that, and that's one of the things that, when I first started looking at foundation, it was like, hey, if you can do 5 minutes here and 10 minutes here, or do this 12-minute routine. And it's amazing how conditioned we are to think that must be a scam, like
yeah, right. Isn't that freaking nonsense? There's few things in the world that piss me off more, because I inadvertently got categorized among a number of people that will never meet me and never do my work as something they shouldn't do, because something else in their life gave them that experience. It has nothing to do with it.
Right.
That's a cycle of behavior, wouldn't you say? Like they're going on a past, how would you say that, Tony? A past scenario, how that played out?
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. Well, what happens is you just think that things are supposed to take much longer, and somebody says 7-minute abs or 12-minute foundation, or just breathe for 5 minutes. You're missing the point. And people think it's in 5 minutes, you'll, like Jessie, my wife, will say, I wish I was married to you, Jessie, but the other Jessie.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what?
Right. Exactly. So Jessie, my wife, like starts a new diet and goes, this isn't working. I go, you've been on it for a day. You're going to have to give it like a day and a half. So
I just want to let everybody know that the names are probably spelled the same way.
Yeah. I always tell everyone, thanks.
It's real.
My name's spelled like a chick. It's I-E. I'm going, awesome, man.
And this is
everywhere I go.
That's why you learned how to fight, man. But listen,
going in too.
And this is actually like a funny serendipitous example of that is every time I send you an email, my brain stops and does like a spell check on your name, right? Because I go like Jesse's a guy, but this IE thing is throwing me off because it's weird, right?
Tony, you're not helping right now, man. You're really not helping me.
Right.
Well, I want to say one thing on the breathing, bro, because that is everything you're saying. I don't know if this ties into it, but what I found to be the craziest thing was I never had a desire of, I need to connect in with my breath and all that crap. But when I decided I wanted to do a free diving course a few years ago when I was in the fire department, because I wanted to, I want to surf, I want to get more comfortable in waves that make me uncomfortable, and whatever, it's a mind game. When I came back from when I came back from doing that course, it was awesome. I had a 3-minute breath hold, and what I inadvertently found out from it over time was, hey, suddenly as I put that, okay, when I go to yoga, I'm just going to work on my free. It's a great time to work on my free dive breathing and building my breath holds. What I started finding was, oh, hey, my mind's not going crazy anymore. Oh, hey, I'm not going how much longer. Suddenly I'm not just falling asleep in the meditations at the end. And what I started seeing was this, I guess you could say, diagnosis of being ADD. I suddenly realized, I've got a little bit of control over this. I could sit with a book and read and not be forgetting what I read every 3 pages.
Right.
You know, and it wasn't until I started to go, what the hell is changing? And I started looking, I go, well, the only thing I brought in was that. And, you know, that started to open up a door. From that, I went to Wim Hof. I did that for a long time. And what's crazy is that Brian's course did make me kind of recognize why my breath holds really went to shit in any other method but doing Wim Hof, in that I was no longer adapting to CO2. I was, you know, suddenly I could do the Wim Hof, hold my breath for a period of time, but when I'd be out there in the surf, suddenly, you know, I'm holding my breath for 30 seconds playing around, and it's like, I don't have that anymore. You know, so it was really cool to hear all these different sciences. I still use Wim Hof for certain things, but, you know, getting to really go down that rabbit hole of Breath of Fire, a lot of the stuff Brian talked about, all my conditioning now, you know, as we talked about, is it's regulated by the breath. You know, I'm only going as fast as I can breathe in my nose, out my nose. And in the beginning, that was a struggle. And then I'm finding like, okay, I can come off of a sprint, plug one side of my nose and try to slow everything down just from that one nostril. And it's
Right.
crazy the mental strength you find, as well as just how that starts to come out in everything you do. Everything seems to get better from it.
Well, this the thing is, you know, I was telling my wife Jessie the other night, you know, trying to, you know, something happened and she got a little emotional, and so I, you know, had her doing her breathing, and she said to me after, and like within about 7 minutes, she was like totally regulated, and afterwards she said it took me a while to get control of the breathing. Like in the beginning, when you're scared, like it's hard to do that. And I said to her, it's because you don't do it every day. The more you do it, that breathing is actually like the most stripped away type of meditation, without the you know, the spiritual, the cultural. It's just, I am going to only focus on breathing in and breathing out and do this properly. And so 100% agree with you that it you know, your ability, I've noticed in the last 6 months, just even my ability to communicate with people, you know, without my brain, like wait till the conversation's over, as opposed to, okay, I gotta go do something. I got 90 things on my mind, where I can just go, okay, my phone is down. I'm not looking at it. I'm only looking in this person's eyes, totally focused. And the only thing that's changed in me, this is similarly to you, is like just this deliberate breathing practice, like, and even when something comes up, like I got a really early morning meeting, and I get up and I don't have time to like even do my foundation and do that, because I got to jump on a call. Like part of me feels guilty, and then part of me goes, well, like you're doing this like, you know, 360 days a year. It's okay to miss one day. You're okay, right? But it's like your body just feels like, oh fuck, I forgot to brush my teeth today. Like, you know, like it's just,
you didn't get your coffee.
Yeah. So
that's been the one with that breathing that I found, the morning routine. When I miss it, it's not the end of the world, but I notice a difference some days when mentally I let myself go into that negative mindset or into a fear loop on things. When, you know, because my breathing time, I mix in Tony Robbins and set intention and focus and plans and, you know, the whole gratitude. And it's amazing how that floods into everything. And it really does become like, shit, I missed my morning coffee today because I didn't get my morning prime in. Right.
Very, very cool. Yeah. So I remember just wrap up on the breathing and circle back to here. You know, I think it was Rob at the seminar said, and it's something really potent, is like, it's the first thing you do, it's the last thing you do. And we should all pay a little bit more attention.
Cool.
You know, that was pretty heavy. The next thing is, like, everybody listening, like, be strong, right? Be like, when I say strong, I'm talking about this isometric tension that the, you know, obviously I'm pushing foundation on this because I've been in so much pain, and I really respected and loved what you said, Eric, in the beginning, that, you know, like, this is this is sustainment work. It's not like, oh, I'm doing the founder's pose and like my back is healed. It's no, you're like, this is what you do so you can continue to live and move and be a great dad and be an athlete and experience life. Am I correct with?
It's life work. This is life work.
Right.
This is, what's stronger, the crane or the cable bearing the weight that the crane lifts?
Right on. I'm not going to answer that in case I'm wrong, but right, exactly.
You want your
yeah, I'm like, I don't know the answer to this.
Think about it.
Yeah, obviously the cable, the cable, but the metaphor, if I'm intuiting this correctly, is they're both like we are the crane, but the cables are all these little muscles that you're strengthening. Is that close?
The crane is, yeah, sure.
I can't edit this.
The crane or the cable. It's not. We're not the crane or the cable, Tony.
Oh shit!
It's that strength. Yeah, dude. This is gonna get deep, dude. Hang on, everybody. I want everybody to take a deep breath before we get into this because it's about to get real. It's about to get real dumb, quite frankly. It's a very simple analogy. Well, I'm not talking about muscles and bones and joints and things. I'm talking about strength. And strength is both propulsion and absorption. The crane propels the weight, but that weight is transferred through the cable, and it is the cable's strength that dictates the absorptive capacity of that crane. You have to be able to absorb at least as much as you can propel, but really you need to be able to absorb a hell of a lot more. And that's what strength is. It's not propulsion, it's absorption. Propulsion is one of the benefits of strength. Strength is the capacity to absorb so much that you don't break when you're asked to absorb it.
Damn. I'm like, some crane guy's going to miss all that and be like, that's wrong, bro. That's not how a crane operates.
No, man, I could get a 400-pound test cable, no problem.
Yeah. No, and what I was visualizing there was like this crane, like trying to, fling some, that wrecking ball into a building, and then the cable breaks and everything goes to shit from there. And it was a beautiful visual. I actually, got some goosebumps there. And Jessie, was it the first time you heard that? Because it sounded like you were like, wow.
It is, but I know I've heard the philosophy enough from Eric. When I think of strength training, I talk that stuff with anybody. Well, I know exactly what he's getting at, and it's changed the way I teach any barbell or kettlebell in the sense of it's not about the load or how much you can move. It's how well are you absorbing the force of what you're doing, And I look at that as when I talk foundation, I look as we're building that support structure of the home with foundation. Then we're going to pile on all the facade and all that fancy shit that looks great on top of the frame. But if that underlining structure isn't strong and absorbing and patterning correctly and loaded correctly, then all this other stuff is going to just eventually make it crumble in. And so, I know exactly what you're saying. And that absorption, I absolutely love the better we can absorb force, the better we can produce force. And I'm just like, for me, that was oh, fuck yeah. Pardon my language.
So we talk about, in foundation training, we talk about eccentric contraction. The contraction of a muscle being against its resistance lengthened. So a muscle starts off kind of short and then we're pulling it into length. Imagining starting a chin up at the top and lowering yourself down to the slowest possible way you can. It'll be hard, but that's eccentric conditioning. That's teaching an absorption of force to a muscle before we ask it to generate force. And if there's a teacher of the body's strength, it's eccentric, not concentric. Concentric comes from a long muscle going to short, but it has to learn how to propel. And that propulsion, that generation of force, it needs to understand how to absorb force before it can generate force. That's just kind of the way it works. That's why we start off as infants in what's called physiologic flexion, which is a shortening of all of the tissues in the body. My wife is an expert on this work. I just listen to her and learn from her as we watch our daughter. But we start off in physiological flexion, and then our body strengthens and learns as we move towards expansion and extension. And it's that going from flexed to expanded that is the grand teacher of our appendicular skeleton. The limbs, the legs, the arms, the shoulders, the hips, all of it. The spine just has to stay big and long. The ribs just have to stay big and long, but it's the unfurling and uncurling of the limbs that teaches us to be powerful later in life.
Love it. Guys, I try to keep these things around an hour, hour and a half. So let's start to wind down. Is there any thoughts, ideas, tips, anything you want to share with listeners?
Jessie has an entire notebook filled with notes and questions that a handful of firefighters asked him because he was going to have the opportunity to talk to you. But I know that we're going to have the opportunity to talk to you at a time, Tony.
We'll do that another day.
You know what? Let's do another call, because let's keep this, because if we go on that, it'll be like right now people are absorbing this stuff and keeping a foundation. If we start asking, I'm guessing those are questions on psychobehavior and fear management and all that stuff, Jessie. Yeah. Let's do
really cool, really deep ones that took me by surprise. But anyways, next time.
No. Let's definitely do another one, because that'll be. Well, I don't want to rush that stuff. That's important stuff. So
and we're here for you. We're here for you, and we want to. We both love spending time with you. I know Jessie really enjoys his time going down there and working with you, and the conversations you guys have. And I've told you a million times how much I enjoy it. So.
Yeah. And vice versa. No, I dig this. And even, it's funny, we've had, lots of talks and FaceTime, and just listening to this, and it's, I have a stand-up desk for people who don't know that. And, I did like every 5 minutes, I was doing different poses and different positions, and it's fun. But I also learned, even though I've been, at varying degrees studying your material through osmosis and doing exercises and stuff like that, I learned a lot on this call, and I'm sure the listeners of the show did. What's the best way to why don't you tell them a little bit about, and this was really this was kind of an exciting thing, because it kind of course it dovetailed or corresponded with stuff that I was researching, but you guys spent a long time and built an online, because geography obviously prevents you and others from getting together face to face. So tell people what's the best way to get more information, and then live training and online training.
Okay. Well, we have about 1,000 instructors around the world as of right now, which is pretty damn good, considering we just started about 5.5 years ago with the certification process. Most of them are really solid. So if you can find a certified instructor, you can find them on our website, foundationtraining.com, and there's like a trainer locator. But we have a new website that's been out for a handful of months now called stream.foundationtraining.com, and it's our entire catalog. We update it every week or two these days with new materials. We're about to film a whole bunch of new programs, including a badass strength program and performance program that Jessie has set up that integrates a lot of our movements with kettlebells and a few other powerful moves that are very important for first responders and tactical type athletes. So that's going to be out very soon as well. But the stream.foundationtraining.com is the best way to find us if you're willing to pay about $15 a month. And if you just need it for free, go to YouTube. I got a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. I just want you to learn this stuff. I want everybody to support us, of course, because that helps us thrive and grow. But I also want you to feel better. And if there's any kind of barrier, I feel bad for that. So you can go online right now and get a whole bunch of free videos on YouTube too. We have foundation training courses that are 4 days long. They're very intense. You'll walk out of there feeling different than you walked in, preferably better. And they cost about $2,500 a piece. They're no joke, and they're a certification process that will hopefully help us, dump a lot of info into your brain and body for a little while. Other than that, man, just try to learn it. There's books, there's DVDs, there's streaming platforms, there's free YouTube, and there's instructional courses. There's a lot of opportunities to learn this work now.
Beautiful. And guys, listening to this is literally for everybody. If you don't work out, I've got, friends that I discovered, like my buddy Pat McNamara, was into this stuff. So like people who are already amazingly strong with insane backgrounds doing this, Jessie on the call, Jessie, not my wife. That's how I'll refer to you from now on. Is Jessie not my wife here?
I'm honored, Tony. Thanks so much.
Right. We'll have that legally changed too, so it can be on your business card.
Yeah.
The stuff for firefighters, and they're doing a lot of work in the tactical community. At the end of the day, I love Eric's analogy with the construction stuff. Both of you guys use a lot of construction analogies, appropriate. But check them out, and we'll have them back on the show. So if you got questions, pop them in the comments, and we'll get this interview out ASAP and make more of you stronger.
And make sure, everybody listening, make sure you go to JESSIE, the Nomad.
_ the Nomad, so I can feel relevant in this world.
Right. He only has 11 followers, so everyone on the show.
If I'm winning on Instagram, I'm winning in life, people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, guys. You guys have been great. I love you. And come visit.
Yes, sir.
A lot of love for you too, Uncle Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, guys. Be safe.
All right, bud.